Welcome to the Pawn Sacrifice channel and the 924S turbo build. It's getting cold in here now. Went for a ride this morning about 1 degree and it's just a bit warmer in here, so that doesn't really affect you. A slight hiatus for me, just due to a lot of work stuff, but now able to get back on with the play stuff. So this time I'm going to be looking at the coolant system and the hard pipes. So essentially this is a new pipe. So essentially this is what would go from the back of the engine. So what comes off of the out of the back of the block down to the heater matrix and then into here. This comes obviously all the way around. I think it sits on top of the intake manifold and then down here and then off to the radiator, which is great, apart from it's not the way that I want anything and it's not going to quite fit. So I need to cut and shut this. This is a new one. This was the one that was originally on the car, and I've actually been through a lot of this exercise before and I even filmed it and all that sort of stuff, but it's just too rusty, and when I was leak testing it I was finding that it was leaking out a little bit, so it was really hard to weld because the metal was really inconsistent. And then one time I filled it up more than I was meaning to on the leak test and it started coming out of here, so I had to wait for a bit to do this. I'm going to try and MIG weld this as well, but first of all I need to have a look on the car and just get this, sort of see exactly where I can position it, that it's not going to be snagging other things and it's not going to be snagging i.e. the hoses, pipes, alternator, belt, everything else, and then also it's not going to be high up and hitting the bonnet. So let's have a look at that. This is the original coolant flange off the back, which is broken and also it doesn't quite fit, but I've chopped the top of one of the parts off just so that I can do this. Now what I want to do is get an idea of the original location, so where the pipe would bolt onto there. So I'm just going to pop this on now. As you can see here, the pipe doesn't fit at all. It's the manifold that it did clip onto or bolt onto, and everything else previously was totally different. So some modification to this, or fairly substantial modification needed to this to make it work. That's where it goes across the back. Currently it's snagging with that turbo line, but I'll be able to sort that out. It comes across here. What I might do is just try and set it up so that it attaches just onto the top of that bolt through the manifold, and instead of this poking out there and going sideways, if I can get that to come across just to the top of the radiator there, that'd be marvellous. So I need to have a look at that now. So I think cut across the top, I'll just chop back section off there for the time being for ease of movement, and then worry about how I'm going to do everything else. So I've marked out the main points at which I'm going to cut it. So to do a bit more welding than I expected. To be honest, this aftermarket pipe is not looking so great. One of the main reasons is the basically the cut on the end there. I don't know how much you can see that, but it's not exactly round, which is a bit of a pain. Cut the tab off so that I can rotate this round at the other end. So I'll just get that welded on, probably in a different position, but I'll try and use that again. If I get this bolted on and then get it bent to where I want it to sit. So that seems to be about right, and with the orientation it just about clears stuff at the back, which I'll show you once that bit's done. Right, following day, and I've taken this in for testing. Remarkably, it's come out pretty watertight. Well, unremarkably, this bit here, so around the top there, that leaks like nobody's business from the top and the bottom, so I'm going to grind that back. This is this section where this join has got a slight leak from somewhere just where the bracket is. In retrospect, what I should have done is tacked the bracket on, got that lined up and positioned, then taken the bracket off, welded all the way around nice and neatly, and I'm sure it would have been fine, and then put the bracket back on afterwards. So I'm just going to cut away a little bit and then try and do a bit of welding in there. This I'm going to grind around and do again. Test on the welds on this, filled it up, put some water in. This top little pipe thing there is just leaking like an absolute disaster. This bit all the way around is absolutely fine. Annoyingly, it does seem that there's some water in just behind this bracket. And so I suspect what's happened is I've blown through there slightly. So drastic things are about to happen. Well, I say drastic things. What I'm going to do is, so I've dug out this, so I bought this for exactly this type of purpose. So I'm going to use that section on the top there, just to go around the back of the engine, or to point it around the back of the engine. So that will be cut off, and I'll just nip the bracket off, or might even be able to reuse some of that, which would be handy. And I'm going to essentially cut this off, so cut it flat as possible, and then what I'm going to do is essentially cut this section out here of that one, and then just weld that on over the top. I seem to be okay at welding the regular metal. I shouldn't have said that, should I? But the bit that I'm really struggling with is just going around the pipe, and I think that's because I keep blowing through it. And unfortunately, this isn't going to be quite long enough, just in terms of that section in the bend from the back. So I just need to put another little bit in there, which is a bit frustrating. Alright, I said I was going to come back when this was finished and watertight. It's actually been probably a week or so at least since the last clip, mostly because I've run out of gas and what have you. But anyway, it's pretty much there. There's a couple of tiny leaks. Now, I remember when I was doing the sump pan, I was going round and round in circles. This morning, I happened to be watching an episode of the Skid Factory, and one of the things that they were doing with a fuel tank was brazing, which I hadn't really considered. So what I am going to do is, I've got a brazing rod, or I've got a few little brazing bits. You're supposed to use a hot torch. I think what I might actually do is turn the TIG welder right down and just use that to heat the metal up. And then just use this to basically go around. And this should get sucked into any of the areas that aren't quite watertight. So I'm going to give that a try and then get on and just put some brackets on to get this held into place. Okay, so that is my bracketed onto the thing. I think what I'm going to do is actually just stop it here. This will give me some adjustability. The back end is going to go, there'll be a small hose which will go from here to the back of the coolant flange, so all good there. Yeah, so I need to get this painted for protection. I don't have any paint, so I'm going to get that and then just get that done. You don't need to necessarily see me doing that. One of the other things which I bought recently, in addition to my welder, was a 3D printer. There's a link up there, but essentially I've designed some 3D printed clips for the fuel lines to go front to back. I'm going to print these. The production version of these is going to be done out of ABS. To do that, I need to build an enclosure, one of the many jobs which is taking time away from me being able to get on with some stuff like this. But yeah, so the other thing that I've done, which I'm hoping to get done, is I've built, and I'll go through this in more detail later, essentially what will be a sort of newer coolant flange, which will go onto the back of the engine, then a section of pipe, and then connect onto there. Hopefully there's all going to be enough room for it all, but I need to do that in ABS, and for that I need the enclosure, and for that I need time to get that built. So that's where we are. Yeah, things are coming together very slowly. Hopefully I'm going to get some time over the holiday period to get some more of this done. The restricting factor there is always being able to buy bits and pieces. So yeah, forever hopeful. Thanks as always for watching, and hopefully catch you again sooner than the last break, or amount of time between things, and I'll just keep playing on with some of this other stuff outside of filming hours, and yeah, hopefully we'll have the engine running early into the new year. That's about that for now. Cheers for watching, catch you next time.